Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about idleness. We will look at an essay by Robert Louis Stevenson and see how this genius of a writer, who is famous for adventurous novels like Treasure Island and Kidnapped, defends being idle. Stevenson was born in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1850. He enrolled himself at Edinburgh University to study engineering and soon got fed up with it. He decided to take on literature as his profession, and the rest is history. He published Treasure Island that can be seen even nowadays in the curriculum of every school, where English literature is taught alongside his other classic novel, Kidnapped. But today we are not going to look at his novels. Today we are going to look at Stevenson as essayist. His essays are brief and condensed with witty phrases that leave the reader in awe at times. In 1877, he wrote a remarkable essay entitled An Apology for Idlers, in which he focuses on the state of idleness and its usefulness in our educational journey. Isn't it interesting that a novelist who had spent most of his time writing adventure novels, in which we find swift action on every page, also wrote an essay in which he defends not doing anything? Should not we ask him first that the title of the essay, An Apology for Idlers, in itself is a bit ironic? I mean, it does not carry that impression that at once makes us pick up the book, given the expectation of a reader after having read the intrigues of Captain Flint. Stevenson seems to have understood that once he has given his fill of action to the world, then he should also present his worldview. We can say the real worldview, when the world stops spinning and the grinding of our work life is put at a distance. Idleness is an existential state. It affects everything. But are we really doing nothing? Are we really not busy when we are idle? It sometimes seems that our mind becomes more industrious when our body is at rest. So, how do you understand idleness, Stevenson? The answer to this question can be found in the very first lines of the essay. He begins, quote open, "Just now, when everyone is bound under pain of a decree in absence, convicting them of less respectability, to enter on some lucrative profession, and labor therein with something not far short of enthusiasm, a cry from the opposite party, who are content when they have enough, and like to look on and enjoy in the meanwhile, savors a little bravado and gasconade. And yet this should not be. Idleness, so called, which does not consist in doing nothing, but in doing a great deal, not recognized in the dogmatic formularies of the ruling class, has as good a right to state its position as industry itself. It is admitted that the presence of people who refuse to enter in the great handicap race for 6 penny pieces is at once an insult and a disenchantment for those who do." Quote close. Human mind is weird. It has many fallacies, and one of them which pushes us to work all the time, in other words, to become a workaholic, is the belief that we will never have enough. A person who believes that he would never have enough will never be satisfied with what he has. It is our mental attitude that is under scrutiny here. An idle person is not someone who does nothing, as we wrongly assume. Stevenson explains that on the contrary, he has enough and he knows how to enjoy what he has. From the outside, he seems idle because he does not share the lust of amassing possessions, which, as Stevenson says, is part of the dogmatic formularies of the ruling class. The more we work, the more the ruling class earns. The more we earn, the more taxes we pay. The more we contribute to the well-being of the state. Conversely, the less we work, the more we are abhorred by the state. Because if we possess the capacity to be more industrious, Why not use it to further a noble national cause of uplifting that divine number that we call the gross domestic product, or the GDP in the abbreviated form? Usually, we are given this chimeric dream of achievements, trophies, and opportunities to speak on the podium. Add to this the national awards given to the brave and hardworking. So, Stevenson, is it not worth working hard for these accolades? Should we not be ambitious for the right kind of recognition? Why stop us from achieving great feats? Achievements! What achievements? Stevenson would exclaim. We can see him getting a bit irritated as he expresses the following judgment on this matter. Quote open. It is a sore thing to have labored along and scaled the arduous hilltops, and when all is done, find humanity indifferent to your achievement. And physicists condemn the unphysical. Financiers have only a superficial toleration for those who know little of stocks. Literary persons despise the unlettered, and people of all pursuits combine to disparage those who have none. Quote close. The problem with these achievements, shares Stevenson, is that they come at a cost of exclusivity. In lieu of expanding our moral self, it gets debased. In fact, he considers it to be the root cause of egoism in the industrial world. Professionals start to behave like ethnic colonizers. They cannot tolerate any other person to stand in front of them and say anything critical about their field. This exclusivity breeds hatred in society, which we misrepresent as healthy competition. Any scientist reading this or any financier reading this would be a bit offended. That is not what you are doing, Stevenson, the same as the charges you are bringing against us. You are also dividing the humanity into two groups, those who work and those who are idle, and consequently criticizing those who work. Then why point finger towards us and call us ungrateful? He immediately realizes this and then qualifies his criticism with the following words. Quote open. You could not be put in prison for speaking against industry, but you can be sent to Coventry for speaking like a fool. The greatest difficulty with most subjects is to do them well. Therefore, please to remember this is an apology. Quote close. He is trying his best to make his point as an apologist of idlers, and it requires certain criticism on the actions and beliefs of the industrious. Since the idlers are so happy and indifferent to what anyone says to them, someone has to present their case. Their language is almost unheard of, and when they speak, they are so calm that it is annoying. Well, that is understandable, Stevenson, but there remains the question that first of all you need to answer. You just said that the literary persons despise the unlettered, and it confused us a bit. You are also a literary person. You have also written books. So why do you not first of all condemn yourself? Almost with a red face, he would get this response. Quote open. Books are good enough in their own way, but they are a mighty bloodless substitute for life. It seems a pity to sit like the Lady of Shalott, peering into a mirror with your back turned on all the bustle and clamor of reality. And if a man reads very hard, as the old anecdote reminds us, he will have little time for thoughts. Quote close. But wait, how come you are saying this? A novelist is saying this. Well, he would say, wait a minute. In the bustle and senseless humming of city life, you have lost your mind. You mean to say that I loathe literature? You mean to say that all books come under this description? These are the books that these stockbrokers, bank managers, and engineers call bestsellers. They are a waste of time. He would ask us to read real literature, the novels born on the street, the words written by the so called idlers. Okay, understandable. Who are these writers? Give us some names. Tell us something about these worthwhile novelists. Without a pause, he would interrupt and exclaim, quote open, "This is not the moment to dilate on that mighty place of education, which was the favorite school of Dickens and of Balzac, and turns out early many inglorious masters in the science of the aspects of life. Suffice it to say, if a lad does not learn in the streets, it is because he has no faculty of learning." Quote close. Writing about life can be learned in the university rooms, but that is not where the drama of life is staged. The science of the aspects of life is learnt on the streets, in the boudoir, salon, on the guillotine, in the factories, etc. We do not find Bounderby in the university classroom. We find him arrogantly stretching himself on the armchair of his factory office. We do not find Lucien in the smelly small rooms where philosophy is taught. We find him on Rue Montparnasse, chasing his beloved Coralie with heavy eyes drooping with the effect of alcohol. That is the classroom for Balzac and Dickens. That is the literature that can convince a workaholic to become a calm, contented idler, a really productive idler. Are you suggesting, Stevenson, that they are not thirsty for knowledge? Don't they deserve a mention for their hard work, their diligence, their relentless pursuit of knowledge? Certainly, we can find at least some hope amongst these researchers who give their all for the betterment of society. A wide, sarcastic smile appears on Stevenson's face with these words in a sarcastic tone. He replies, quote open, "Many who have plied their book diligently and know all about some one branch or another of accepted lore come out of the study with an ancient and owl-like demeanor and prove dry, stockish, and dyspeptic in all the better and brighter parts of life. Many make a large fortune who remain underbred and pathetically stupid to the last, and meantime there goes the idler who began his life along with them. By your leave, a different picture. He has had time to take care of his health and his spirits. He has been a great deal in the open air, which is the most salutary of all things for both body and mind. And if he has never read the great book in very recondite places, he has stepped into it and skimmed it over to excellent purpose." Quote close. The problem is twofold: the manner of their pursuit and the objective of their pursuit. Fretting too much about the laws of gravity may give us another Principia, or at least its competitor. But can it give us any wisdom about how to live a good life? This question is related to the purpose of pursuit. What is all this effort for? To improve society or to improve oneself? Or even worse, to work for a particular kind of community exclusively? Stevenson wants to highlight the common problem in our social understanding of education. As a society, we have marginalized education from everyday life. We have segregated the educated from the uneducated. This dichotomy is detrimental to society as a whole, because those whom we consider uneducated and idle are wiser and more lively, according to Stevenson, precisely because their spiritual and corporeal capacities have not yet become rusted with the inactive, useless burden of prolonged debates about questions like whether numbers are real or unreal. With such a bleak description of the learned of the society, how can we become an idler? We turn on the television, there is war and genocide. We scroll through our phones, we find stupidities of all kind common across our generation. We have so many distractions, so many things to do when we are idle. What should we do? Yes, Stevenson. On what island do you want us to go to become an idler? First of all, he would stop us and maybe even push us back literally, suggesting that it is unacceptable if we think that in our generation we find the world different from the 19th century as far as human folly is concerned, he would then take up his fill of smoke and say, quote open, the shadows and the generations, the shrill doctors and the plangent wars go by into ultimate silence and emptiness. But underneath all this, a man may see out of the Belvedere windows much green and peaceful landscape. Many firelit parlors, good people laughing, drinking, and making love as they did before the flood or the French Revolution. And the old shepherd telling his tale under the hawthorn. Extreme busyness, whether at school or college, kirk or market, is a symptom of deficient vitality, and a faculty of idleness implies a Catholic appetite and a strong sense of personal identity. Quote close. Wars will come and go, plagues will come and go, even generations will come and go. That is the rule of history. But what cannot certainly be missed in this coming and going of grand things is the experience of here and now. Just as countries have continued to wage wars, we have continued to make friends with our neighbors during evening walks. Just as plagues have continued to instill fear in us about the future of humanity, we have continued to create our future plans with our partners. We have continued to struggle against all odds to save those whom we love. Just as the world leaders have continued to moan on the podiums, we have continued to laugh in our little cafes, clapping on every birthday announcement we have heard while bonding with our friends on a coffee table. All this bustle has at the heart of it a major struggle, which is the struggle of personal identity, as Stevenson calls it. Each one of us wants to know who he or she is. It is a part of our human condition that we want to create our own self and work towards it. But unfortunately for Stevenson, we have wrongly assumed all along that tireless effort and action are required to have a strong personal identity. We have never considered idleness to be the most productive source of identity. In fact, we can only work on ourselves with a space in between, only through detachment from the humdrum of the daily life. When we are a bit at ease, when we are finally working for nobody, not even for ourselves, rather we are working on ourselves. Human nature is malleable, Stevenson. Can it not be changed? Can we not make an idler of a workman? Can we not convince these people to stop being such a workaholic and convert to, let us say, idealism? He says that though human nature is malleable, but these people have habituated themselves so forcefully that it seems to be a Herculean task to convince them otherwise. He explains, quote open, it is no good speaking to such folk. They cannot be idle. Their nature is not generous enough, and they pass those hours in a sort of coma, which are not dedicated to furious moiling in the gold mill. When they do not require to go to the office, when they are not hungry and have no mind to drink, the whole breathing world is a blank to them. If they have to wait an hour or so for a train, they fall into a stupid trance with their eyes open. To see them, you would suppose there was nothing to look at and no one to speak with. You would imagine they were paralyzed or alienated, and yet very possibly they are hard workers in their own way and have good eyesight for a flaw in a deed or a turn of the market. They have been to school and college, but all the time they had their eye on the medal. They have gone about in the world and mixed with clever people, but all the time they were thinking of their own affairs, as if a man's soul were not too small to begin with. They have dwarfed and narrowed theirs by a life of all work and no play, until here they are at 40, with a listless attention, a mind vacant of all material of amusement, and not one thought to rub against another while they wait for the train. Before he was breeched, he might have clambered on the boxes. When he was 20, he would have stared at the girls, but now the pipe is smoked out, the snuff box empty, And my gentleman sits bolt upright upon a bench with lamentable eyes. This does not appeal to me as being success in life. Quote close. The definition of success is subjective. Each one of us has a different standard and expectations that give the contours to our behavior. And as Stevenson says, the problem with the contemporary definition of almost every success has a taste of materialistic egoism in it. Every minute that we do nothing, like for example while waiting on a train station, we feel that we have lost that minute in earning for ourselves. There is this really monstrous concept in economics that Stevenson would hate terribly. It is called the opportunity cost. Every time we are calculating opportunity costs of doing a certain action, there is a list of actions that we can do in a moment. But since time is scarce, we have to make a choice of which actions to pursue. The decision usually depends upon the judgment of the maximization of material utility. Stevenson would interpose and look at that list, saying, why does it not have being idle for an action? Because as in a theatre, the spectators enjoy at the expense of the tears and joys of the actors, Stevenson demands, why does not the same logic apply in the theatre of life? He complains, quote open, to an impartial estimate, it will seem clear that many of the wisest, most virtuous, and most beneficent parts that are to be played upon the theatre of life are filled by gratuitous performers and pass among the world at large as phases of idleness. For in that theatre, not only the walking gentlemen, singing chambermaids, and diligent fiddlers in the orchestra, but those who look on and clap their hands from the benches to really play a part and fulfill important offices towards the general result. Quote close. After having schooled the man of business, now he turns to the worth of an idler. What is idleness worth in the end? Look at how he metaphorically equates the role of the idler with that of the spectators. A person pays to go to the theatre and do nothing but watch the players on the stage. And when the world offers the same drama for free, we fail to watch and applause. On the contrary, we become actors and actresses without having time to laugh a bit at ourselves and be happy. On the worth of happiness, Stevenson has a comparison to make, as if he still is not done with his incisive wit and trying every arsenal in his mind to convince about the true worth of happiness. He says, quote open, a happy man or woman is a better thing to find than a 5-pound note. He or she is a radiating focus of goodwill, and their entrance into a room is as though another candle had been lighted. We need not care whether they could prove the 47th proposition. They do a better thing than that. They practically demonstrate the great theorem of the livableness of life. Quote close. His plea is simple. For God's sake, make life livable. We do not come to the world to die. We come here to live. Therefore, please make it livable. Do not fret about these petty logical propositions that require sleepless nights to be resolved. And even then, if they are resolved, they may help some other theoretician to lock himself up and build a theory on it, and then the other would follow. The cycle would continue, but these theories will never see the light of day. They will always remain the heritage of the seminar rooms. This also suggests that Stevenson is not criticizing those thinkers and workers who actually do something for the good of the world. As he has already explained, it is the attitude problem. Work or no work, we should feel contented with what we have, what we work for, and what we hope for. Because the life of an industrious man who has nothing but pain to give to himself and others is as good as, sorry to be blunt, dead. I can apologize to say that. Now let's listen to Stevenson losing his temper on the industrious man. Quote open. Look at one of your industrious fellows for a moment, I beseech you. He sows hurry and reaps indigestion. He puts a vast deal of activity out to interest and receives a large measure of nervous derangement in return. Either he absents himself entirely from all fellowship and lives a recluse in a garret with carpet slippers and a leaden inkpot, or he comes among people swiftly and bitterly in a contraction of his whole nervous system to discharge some temper before he returns to work. I do not care how much or how well he works. This fellow is an evil feature in other people's lives. They would be happier if he were dead. They could easier do without his services in the circumlocution office than they can tolerate his fractious spirit. He poisons life at the wellhead. It is better to be beggared out of hand by a scapegrace nephew than daily hag-ridden by a peevish uncle. Quote close. He doesn't apologize. And why should he? To him belongs the art of essay writing. He can say what he wants. Everyone would just listen to him, smile, and even if hurt, would just put his head down and marvel at the beauty of expression and just wish only if fate would have allowed him a different life. Notwithstanding all your criticism, Stevenson, are you not overstepping a bit? Like all these great men and women that you talk about who have given their all to make this world a better place, do not they deserve some respect? Certainly, the world would have been different if there were no Voltaire, Balzac, Molière, or Shakespeare. Stevenson, being Stevenson, would with a wide laugh say with a pomp that you talk about Balzac and Dickens. Tell me who is the most famous writer of English language. Well, we do not even have to think. It's Shakespeare. Stevenson would then reply with the following. Quote open. Suppose Shakespeare had been knocked on the head some dark night in Sir Thomas Lucy's preserves. The world would have wagged on better or worse. The pitcher gone to the well, the scythe to the corn, and the student to his book, and no one been any the wiser of the loss. There are not many works extant. If you look the alternative all over, which are worth the price of a pound of tobacco to a man of limited means, this is a sobering reflection for the proudest of our earthly vanities. Even a tobacconist may, upon consideration, find no great cause for personal vainglory in the phrase. For although tobacco is an admirable sedative, the qualities necessary for retailing it are neither rare nor precious in themselves. Alas, and alas! You may take it how you will, but the services of no single individual are indispensable. Atlas was just a gentleman with a protracted nightmare. Quote close. He always has his wit sharpened. You throw at him a challenge, he replies with such an authority and explanation that you are dumbfounded. Okay, I concede. You are right. Any last piece of advice, s'il vous plaît? I leave you with these words with which Stevenson concludes his essay. Quote open. The ends for which they give away their priceless youth for all they know may be chimerical or hurtful. The glory and riches they expect may never come, or may find them indifferent. And they and the world they inhabit are so inconsiderable that the mind freezes at the thought. Quote close. Thank you, everyone.